I received an email question recently from someone who was asking how they can reduce belly fat. So I'm just going to go over the general principles to address this. It does get a little bit more nuanced depending on the individual's situation, but these are the four levers that you can pull that'll make the biggest difference for the majority of people. So the first thing that I would recommend is to decrease carbohydrate intake, particularly refined sugar and starchy carbohydrates. You can keep the vegetables and fruits to some degree in, particularly certain fruits like blueberries that are lower in sugar. And you may want to reduce fruits like bananas and oranges that have more sugar. And in some cases, you may need to completely eliminate carbohydrate intake and do what's called a ketogenic diet, where you completely eliminate carbohydrates except for the incidental carbs that come in with fiber. But that's dependent on the individual situation. I would start with going low carbohydrate first and not completely cut carbohydrates out, because it's very difficult to do that and it's hard to sustain it. But it is useful and very, very effective if needed and when it is done. The next thing that you want to do is increase your physical activity level. So whatever you're doing right now, whatever your baseline physical activity level is, you need to increase that to make sure you're burning more calories than are coming in. The third thing you want to do is manage your cortisol release. You want to decrease cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone, and when cortisol levels go up, it causes deposition of body fat, particularly in the stomach. So the main mechanisms by which you can decrease cortisol levels are by making sure you're getting sufficient quantity of sleep, which for most adults is at least 7 hours, but that's an experiment you have to do with yourself because it varies based on the individual. Some people may need 8 or even 9 hours, especially if you're an athlete or you have some type of physical job, you may need more. And some people need less, but most people need at least 7 hours. Ultimately, the way you know how much sleep you need is that when you wake up, you should feel refreshed. If you don't feel refreshed, then you need to do an experiment and try to add more sleep and see what happens. The other thing, in addition to the quantity of sleep, is the timing of the sleep. It's not just how much you sleep, but it's actually when you're sleeping. So you want to make sure that you're asleep between the 10 to 12 o'clock window to blunt and limit the cortisol release. If you stay up until 11 o'clock, then what happens is your body, in order to keep you up past 11, it releases adrenaline, which is called the second wind, which is why a lot of times when you're staying up until about 11, you're getting tired. But if you push past that, you start to feel a little bit more alert. That's that second wind of your body releasing adrenaline. So if you're asleep between 10 and 12, it blunts that, so that doesn't happen. And then when the adrenaline is released, then cortisol increases as well. So we want to get ahead of that and make sure that doesn't happen. The other way to decrease cortisol levels is to manage your stress. And this is an individual thing. Everybody has different ways that they find they can manage their stress. Some people benefit from meditation. Some people benefit from breathing techniques or yoga. Whatever helps you manage your stress, you need to identify that and make sure you incorporate that on a daily basis or a few times a week, just to make sure that you're mitigating the effects of whatever stress you're under, particularly more difficult periods of your life where you may be under more time constraints or other pressures. And the fourth variable here is the last thing I recommend, because in most cases it's not needed. However, in some situations it may be, and that is a reduction in overall caloric intake. So reducing your overall dietary input. I don't usually recommend that because that causes other problems. You can start to get nutrient deficiencies. And most of the time, if if you address this issue with variables number 1, 2, and 3, you can get good results, and you don't have to resort to decreasing your overall food intake.